Good morning, everybody. Hi, my name is Rochelle Katz, and I am the acting program manager for EIV. And for those of you who might not know what that means, it's the Enterprise Income Verification, and it's really a system, okay? Thank you all for coming out here. I do know that getting in the building was a little bit strenuous this time, and the only thing I can attribute it to is the fact that the Notre Dame Cathedral had a little fire or something. So I'm not sure what it is, but as far as I know, you could almost sail through to get in here, except this week. So we are having our 2019 training, and we have not had training since 2011. And we've had some changes, as you all know. And please do not beat me up, because I know I was going to get up here and brag about the IVT tool. Unfortunately, we have been without IT support for a little bit. They did come back this week, and so we will have them working to get some of the things straightened out. And I know for sure one of them is printing. And then I think we had a couple of false positives. Okay, but anyway, we're working on it to get it working. So I was going to introduce you to my whole staff, but not all of them are in here. So let me just go with the ones that I do have. Could you stand up when I call your name? I have Darlene Felton. Darlene works with SAVE quite a bit, so if you have any questions on SAVE, you can sort of take her to a corner and talk to her about it. I have Dorothy Rogan. Dorothy has been with EIV for a very long time, so even though she's not considered one of our senior people, she does have a lot of knowledge. And I have Victoria Alston. Victoria is going to start off our presentation today. And I have William Bowman. Will is working with our contractors, but he's pretty much what I would call one of the new people as myself. We haven't been here as long as some of these other people. All right, now, since I can't introduce you to any of the other people on my group, I have Deanna Hinton is out on the desk. I have Erica Williams. Erica was leading people back, and I think the other lady works for Christine. And let me segue over and say, we have Christine Jenkins from the DC field office, and I'm going to have her come up and she can introduce her staff. Thank you all for coming.
Good morning, everyone. As Rochelle mentioned, I am Christine Jenkins. I'm the director of the DC field office. And I also would like to say welcome to the Enterprise Income Verification Training, Enterprise Income Verification Training, which is known as the EIV. I'd like to welcome you to HUD. I see most of our housing agencies that are here, and it's really good to see the many faces. My office actually oversees about 12 agencies in the DC, Maryland, and the Virginia area, and we are really excited to see all of you and to welcome you here to the EIV training. I want to thank the REACT team, Rochelle and her team, for all of the work that they have put forth in making this training happen. As you know, most of the times when a lot of the programs that we have that are actually implemented by your agency, HUD really try to work really, really hard to make sure that we are providing as much guidance and information and details about our programs out to you. We also have the many offices, 47 field offices across the United States, where we are working very hard to making sure that most of our housing agencies are aware of all of the updates and all of the various programs, all of the new initiatives that we have here at HUD, and the field offices serve as a role or facilitator to work with the housing agencies to make sure that they are implementing those programs according to HUD's regulations. So we really appreciate all of the hard work that goes into what you do day by day at your agencies, and we are here as a field office and as HUD to make sure that we're providing all of the assistance to you as necessary. EIV is very important, as you know. It is the primary function of the system is to ensure that errors are reduced to house as many families as possible. And as some of you are aware, most of the waiting lists in this area are all full and closed. You may be aware that the DC Housing Authority, last time we checked, they had over about 40,000 people on their waiting list. So as you know, it's been very important that HUD continue to present this type of training and many other guidance to the housing agencies, and that we work with you in your utilization efforts to make sure that you are housing as many families as possible because of the high demand that we have in this area. Because that is what HUD's mission. HUD's mission is to house families, and we want to work closely with the housing agencies to make sure that you are doing everything as possible to house those families that's on the waiting list. And as I mentioned, we get calls every day in our office of people that are needing homes, and it's very disappointing to have to share information about the shelters because of the closed waiting list. But as an office, we try to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure families are not actually living on the streets. HUD has issued many various notices, as you are aware. So I want to encourage all the housing authority, and they're probably going to get into some of that, to talk about some of the notices that are out there. And anytime we issue notices, and that you hone in on some of the updates that's in those notices, so that you are aware, and when I mean notices that relates to the EIV system. And we want to encourage you to make sure that you look into those. And so they have a full agenda for the next 2 days that's going to give you a lot of information about the EIV system. I just want to encourage you to please be engaged. Please be engaged. Ask as many questions as you would like. My team is here, and I'm going to introduce them. Rochelle's team is here. You can also pull us on the side. That's what we are here for, is to answer your questions. If you need any clarifications, not only by EIV, but we're going to be here for the duration of the 2 days. If it's any other HUD-related matters, myself and my staff will be here to work to answer your questions and to meet with you if necessary. One other important initiative that we actually have here in PIH, and most of you in the PHAs are aware of this, is the repositioning initiatives that's going forth within the public housing agencies and within HUD. Very, very important. We have gone out to met with all of our PHAs, and we have made presentations to the PHAs about the repositioning in a sense that HUD has looked at the way it has performed its business. Over the years, HUD has distributed so much funds out to these agencies, and the agencies have struggled to try to make ends meet. Every year, the funding is cut, and many of our housing agencies have worked to try to patch up units, to try to resolve complaints with the tenants, to make sure that the tenants are living in decent, safe, and sanitary living conditions. So what HUD has done is taken a step back and say, we're going to have to change this course of action. So we have what you call the repositioning efforts, where it would include a process of really the change of the look of public housing. And we have gone out to many of our agencies, and we have been really fortunate to have most of the agencies to commit to this repositioning efforts. We understand it's going to be a long process, but we have committed to work very closely with our housing agencies to make sure that they get through this process of repositioning which means that the tenants can smile again. The tenants can look at some of their units, and they can possibly reduce some of the calls that are coming to HUD about falling roofs or their homes, water leaks, and so forth. So we have presented this repositioning initiative to all of our housing agencies, and we have some of them here today. We're having calls pretty much every week. We have a repositioning panel that has been set up, and a lot of thought has been put into this process. HUD has committed to just making sure that we are there to answer all of the questions through this process, because again, we want to make sure that we have happy families, and the families it would actually reduce some of the complaints because they would have better living conditions. So again, we appreciate your participation today. I am sure that you are going to enjoy this training, and again, be engaged, ask as many questions as possible so that you can take it back to your staff and your day-to-day business in terms of what you do with the EIV is improved upon. So at this particular time, I would like to put some faces with a name. A lot of you probably have interacted with my staff, and I'd like to introduce you to the DC field office. And we're located here in the DC areas near the Union Station. First, let me introduce, if you can please stand, James Brown. James has provided oversight to the DC to the DC Housing Authority, Rockville Housing Authority, I want to say Glen Arden Housing Authority, and he is also Michael Subaru. Actually worked with James on some of those agencies. This is Michael. Michael has oversight of the Arlington Housing Authority, as well as he worked jointly with some other staff on College Park Housing Authority. And the next individual is Camille Lonan. Camille has now been assigned to work with the Montgomery County Housing Authority and College Park Housing Authority. In reorganizing our office, I always think that I need to move College Park, but I was like, oh no. Camille and Mr. Simmons has a great working relationship, so I dare not to move Camille from working with Mr. Simpson. So the next individual is Diane Duke. She's actually working on with the Alexandria Housing Authority and Fairfax County Housing Authority. And yes, those are the two agencies, and Loudoun County, exactly. And please forgive me, I think Prince William County is also, Camille is actually overseeing. And Linda Scott just walked in. She has been working with the front desk of registration. Linda is also part of my staff, and Linda provides oversight to the Prince George's County Housing Authority. And she is also known as our PIC coach, and she worked with all of the system issues, and she is our lead person on EIV. So if there's any questions that's going to come up throughout this presentation, Linda will be the lead person, and we will help as well. And some of the two persons that are out is Drella Allen. Drella provide oversight to the community connection. She also worked very closely with James on Glen Arden Housing Authority. And so that's Drella Allen. And John Lucas is also our financial analyst. He's also on a rotation through the MDP program, and he is our financial analyst. So again, we, as you know, our field office, the PHA should just know that, we're always here. My door is always open. The phone, call us at any point, whatever there is a need, and we want to make sure that we're providing to you all of the necessary information or questions, answers to your questions to make your job easier. So thank you again. Enjoy the training. Thank you.
Okay, hello again. We also invited the Baltimore field office. Is anyone here from the Baltimore field office? Okay. Well, I had two more of my staff trickle in, and let me introduce them. I have Shay Hardy. Stand up, Shay. let them see. Shay is our pick guru. And we have Deanna Hinton. Deanna's going to be getting married here soon. All right, I don't want to keep you any longer. We're going to have Victoria Alston come up and give an overview of EIV.
Hello, everyone. A pleasure to see you. I've got an opportunity to come around and meet quite a few of you, but it's so good to actually be able to put a face to the many names. We've worked with EIV for quite some time now, and most of our communication with everyone is either via telephone or email, so it's really a pleasure to get to see a lot of you folks. Well, this is just going to be a brief overview of the EIV system training. We know that the EIV system is a web-based application. It provides PHAs with wage, income, employment, and Social Security benefit information. PHAs use this information when they're doing the mandatory annual re-exams or interims if they have those policies set in place. We don't have slides for this, so I'll just go over briefly things that I'm quite sure you know, but we're going to cover accessing the EIV system, and with that, we're going to go over the required training that you need to access EIV, the forms, and the authorization that's required for a staff person to get access and use the system. Then we're going to cover using the EIV system, and that'll cover all the assigned user roles, user access roles required to perform specific tasks within the EIV system. Then we're going to go into the debt sold and termination module. We know that many of you have had questions regarding debt sold because there has been some significant changes to the way that we handle debt sold in the last year or so. So we're going to talk about when you would enter debt, how many times you can update debt, and things of that nature. And we're going to go over the former and existing tenant search. Now, some information came out in our latest notice that we really want PHAs to use that function of EIV at admissions. We definitely want them to use the former and current existing tenant search because we want to make sure that individuals that are applying for our program aren't already receiving some sort of subsidy in another HUD program. Then we're going to look at the deceased tenants, and that is we're going to cover give you the ins and outs of making sure that no payments are going to any landlord beyond the date of death, 30 days beyond the date of death, or at the end of the month for a person that has been deceased. We know that's one of the low-hanging fruit reports in EIV, and we really encourage PHAs to utilize that report to the fullest. That's like the easiest way to recoup money because you can see right then and there the date of death, and you can correct that instantly. Whereas with some of the other reports, you do have to do a little more digging, or you have to do a little more research. The deceased tenant's report is just right in front of you. You can go in and EOP that particular tenant, and there will be no more improper payments going out, if any have. Then we're going to cover the immigration, and we know that's just verifying tenant citizenship status, the multiple subsidy. Again, we want to make sure there's no duplicate subsidies being paid on behalf of any of our tenants, and the income validation tool. Now, we're really excited about the income validation tool. That is going to replace the current income discrepancy report on the EIV webpage. In a few days after the weekend summarization, you will not be able to see the income discrepancy report there. You'll only be able to see the income validation tool because some of you may have went in and looked and you can still see both. So we know the PHAs ask for a more detailed way to verify income, and so we provide it. Also, we have a mic set up. If any of you have any questions, you can feel free to come up and ask questions. For those who are shy or who do not like speaking in front of crowds, we have something for you too. We've set up an EIV training at Hub mailbox. So if you think of any questions and you're too shy to get up and come and say anything, or you just couldn't think of it while the training was in progress, then you can send it to that mailbox. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the training instructor. Sit back, relax, enjoy the training, and enjoy your stay in D.C.
Well, thank you, Victoria. We really appreciate that. My name is Azam Mirza. I'm from Blueprint Consulting Services. I am EIV contractor support, so I'll be administering this training. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. And just like Victoria mentioned, there is an email box that you can send your questions to if you don't want to talk about it now or you don't want to talk about it in front of folks. You can just go ahead and email it to EIV_training@hud.gov, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be flashing that up at some point on the screen so you guys can get that. And it's also in the training materials that we emailed out earlier. Here's just a brief overview of our training agenda for today. So we're going to go, we already had our opening remarks and we had our overview, so we're just going to jump into the first session, and we plan on having a break around 10:45 for folks to, go grab some coffee, water, use the restroom. After that, we are looking at having lunch around noon, breaking for lunch for about an hour, and then another break at 2:30. And here's what day 2 training session is going to look like. Again, we're going to go through this information with 2 breaks and then lunch. And if we do have time permitting, we'll open up the floor to some questions. There's a microphone sitting right there in the middle of the floor, and then our EIV staff has a microphone so that they can answer your questions in more detail than I can. So let's go ahead and start. Let's give you an understanding of the EIV basics. Victoria already went over some of this. But what is EIV? EIV is automated written third-party verification. What is the EIV system? It's an upfront income verification tool. It's a web-based application available to authorized program administrators of HUD Rental Housing Assistance Program and HUD staff like yourselves. The use of EIV is to validate tenant-reported wages, unemployment, and Social Security income during your mandatory interim re-examinations. The reason for this is so that we can identify improper payments and reduce fraud, waste, and abuse against HUD's public housing programs. EIV contains data obtained through computer matching agreements with the Social Security Administration and Health and Human Services. It contains debts owed to PHAs and terminations, which are adverse statuses of your EOP, end of participation information. And it's also, all the information within EIV is protected within the, under the Federal Privacy Act. So you need to make sure that you do not disclose any PII information. There's a lot of personal information within the system that you need to make sure that we all take care of. PHAs are required to use EIV as a third-party source to verify tenant employment and income information, and use EIV to reduce administrative and substantive payments. The reason for it is to minimize the use of third-party verification the old way, the paper way, through the mail, through fax. So this way you can just do it through the system. And it only contains Social Security information and supplemental security income benefits unless a tenant disputes EIV, and you can see the PIH notice there. EIV should be used in conjunction with current pay stubs, employer letters, tenant-provided documents from a third party may be acceptable, and PIHs can pursue traditional third-party verification forms if the tenant is unable to provide the documents requested by the PHAs, if the tenant-provided documents are not acceptable to the PHAs, and if tenants disputes EIV and or one of the other conditions that we just described. EIV, once again, is used to validate tenant-reported income and supplemented tenant-provided documents. EIV should not be used to calculate anticipated annual income, except as specified by HUD guidelines. Sorry about that. The benefits of EIV: improved program integrity. identify and prevent fraud, waste, and abuse, identify and recover improper payments, ensure that the limited federal resources are available to as many families as possible, and to ensure that the program is accessible by the intended program beneficiaries. SSA provides the following information: death records, validation of public and Indian housing information, or PIC reported Social Security numbers, date of births, names, Social Security benefits, supplemental security income benefits, dual entitlements, and Medicare and hospital insurance premiums. The source of SSA information are the SSA benefits database and the master death file. Housing and Health and Human Services provides the following information from its National Directory of New Hires, quarterly unemployment insurance, quarterly wages, monthly new hires, including date hired, employer name, employer address, employer identification number. The source of NDNH information is as follows: UI, unemployment insurance, state workforce agencies that provide that. QWs is provided by employers, and W-4s are provided by employers. The debts owed to PHAs and termination information is reported by the PHA, which provide assistance to the former tenant. Here are the EIV system functions. Identify tenants whose identity cannot be verified. Identify tenants who are required to disclose a Social Security number. Identify tenants who are deceased. Tenants who may be receiving multiple assistance. Tenants who may already be receiving rental assistance. Tenants who have started new jobs. Tenants with income discrepancies or unreported incomes, and former tenants with reported debt owed to PHAs or an adverse EOP status. EIV income data is accessible anytime. Data available for those existing tenants may not be available for applicants. 2 years of wage and unemployment information is available. Current SS, SSI, dual entitlement benefit income, Medicare and hospital insurance premium information. Once again, we want to stress, and I know Rochelle has stressed this a lot, that EIV is not the end-all, be-all. So do not use it as gospel. It is there as a tool. It's supposed to help you, examine these families and examine these applicants at the times of re-examinations. EIV will display income information that's provided by the third-party sources. The computer matching agreements that HUD has with SSA and HHS are based on HUD collected data from PHAs on a current Form 500-58 within PIC. If there is no Form 5058 in PIC, then there will be no income information in EIV. Tenant PII is collected from the Section 3 of the Form 58, and it's used to validate that individual's identity. PHA reported and verified wages, unemployment, and SS and SSI benefits are collected in Section 7 of your Form 58. Computer matching with Social Security Administration occurs with the current Form 58 action types: new admissions, annual re-exams, interim re-exams, portability move-in, other change of unit, an annual re-exam or search voucher, flat rate annual update, and a historical adjustment. HUD sends tenant PII and household information to SSA for identity validation, attainment of failed identity errors, attainment of death information, and attainment of SS, SSI, and dual entitlement benefit information for individuals who have been positively identified. Matching occurs on the 1st and the 15th of each month. SSA information in EIV is updated every 3 months for all households in accordance with the computer matching schedule, which we will show you later. Subsequently, monthly matching occurs for updated Forms 5.8, new admissions, portability move-ins, and historical adjustment actions, or if a modified tenant's PII. SS and SSI benefits are modified annually to reflect the SSA-approved cost of living adjustments and all beneficiaries by December 31st of each year. New matching occurs with HHS with these following Form 5.8 action types: new admissions, annual reexaminations, interim reexams, portability move-ins, other change of unit, annual reexams, flat rate annual updates, and historical adjustments. HUD sends HHS the Social Security numbers of individuals who are 18 and over and who have passed both the HUD pre-screening and the Social Security Administration identity verification process to obtain the following: W-4s, QWs, and UIs. Monthly computer matching occurs on the 16th and the 30th of each month, in which we obtain the W-4 new hires for all individuals over the ages of 18, QWs and UIs for individuals over the age of 18 for any HUD Form 5.8 with an action of a new admission, portability move-in, historical adjustments. Now, the timing of this NDNH data, there are more reporting timeframes. Associated with the reporting of quarterly and monthly report data. SWAs and federal agencies are required to report data within a specific time frame. Those timeframes are for new employment information twice a month, or within 20 days of the hire. For federal quarterly wage information no later than 1 month after the end of the quarter. For quarterly wage non-federal within 4 months of the end of the quarter. Quarterly unemployment compensation within 1 month of the calendar year. And here's a reference for you for the availability of the NDNH data. So if you ever need to go back and check, you can go ahead and see here, and I'll let you know when within each quarter that information should be available. Let's talk about access to EIV. Sure. Do you want to talk on the microphone?
The QW, you had talked about the QW and UI. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what that means?
What the QW and UI mean?
Quarterly wages and unemployment insurance, is that what you're talking about?
It's quarterly wages and unemployment insurance.
And that is, let's see. You can also find that on slide 14. All right. Now, here are some basic rules of behavior for using the EIV system. All EIV system users, including handlers and viewers of EIV information, must adhere to HUD security policies. Failure to comply with these rules may result in termination of EIV access and civil and criminal penalties. One thing we have to remember is this are people's PII information, their personally identifiable information. You have to protect that. EIV system users are responsible for protecting password and information, equipment, PHA systems and networks, communication pathways to which users have access to. The Web Access Security System, or WAS, user ID and password issued to you will be used solely in connection with the performance of your responsibilities in support of HUD's mission and the administration of these HUD rental assistance programs. Personal use of EIV is strictly prohibited, so you cannot look up somebody's information just because you know them or you want to find out somebody else's information that's not required for your job function. You must not provide your user ID or password to anyone, including another employee during your employment at the PHA nor upon leaving your employment with the agency. It's similar to providing your password to your friend at work. You just can't do it. Users are required to use only HUD-approved software and software settings and comply with all vendor software license agreements. Users must avoid leaving the system output records or records unattended. You must lock your computers and log out of the system when leaving work or areas that are unattended. All users are held accountable for their actions while using the system, viewing and printing the electronic EIV information. All users and PHAs are subject to monitoring of the use of the EIV system in compliance with security requirements by HUD. Immediately report any suspected violations or breach of EIV. You would report that to your supervisor. You would need to report that to the EIV system administrator, in which you could do that at EIV_help. And if you do not receive a response from the EIV system administrator, then you can contact the HUD's National Help Desk. Here are some training prerequisites for EIV to gain EIV access. EIV system users must complete the following training: your annual security awareness training, your initial EIV system training, and the updated EIV system training, and any future trainings regarding the EIV system. Viewers and handlers must complete the annual security training. The training must be completed prior to accessing the system, and you can find those trainings at the link located here. The PHAs must have the following in the tenant file for each adult household member, including live-in aides, prior to accessing EIV income information. Form 9886, which is the authorization of release of information, or the equivalent consent which meets the requirements of requisition 24. EIV information is to be used once again for the sole purpose of determining eligibility and the level of assistance for the following programs: public housing and Section 8 housing choice voucher. This also includes DHAP programs, moderate rehabilitation, and project-based voucher. The Federal Privacy Act prohibits the disclosure of anybody's information and another person without written consent of that individual. So we've had a couple of slides right now about the importance of safeguarding this information, and that should let you know how important it is to HUD that we make sure that all this information is private and that we keep good keep of it. EIV data of a household member may not be shared or copy provided or displayed with another adult household member unless that individual has provided a written consent. PHAs can discuss with a head of household to validate how the household income and rent were determined based on the total family income reported and verified. EIV information of a minor may be disclosed to the parent or guardian only. Here are the following scenarios in which EIV information may be disclosed. The individual to which the information pertains to, you can obviously tell them their information. A PHA hired auditor who have signed non-disclosure agreements. Independent auditors who have signed non-disclosure agreements. The HUD OIG, the Inspector General, or the Attorney General. They also may be disclosed to entities associated with a grievance procedure and judicial proceedings related to independently verified unreported income identified through EIV. These individuals may not access EIV. They are authorized to view only paper or electronic copies of this information. EIV information may be disclosed to PHAs with housing choice voucher portability. Sure.
Just to piggyback on that, when you do share that information with those entities that we listed, please make sure that either you cover or you let them know that there are PII information there and that you do not want that to fall in different hands. So I would recommend after they view it to shred it or store it somewhere where it cannot be accessed.
All right, thank you, Shay. And to wrap this up, Requisition 24 requires that initial PHAs to provide the receiving PHA the most recent Form 5-8 for the family and related verification income information, including EIV information. So let's go over how to obtain EIV access. A PHA executive director or an ED or an authorizing individual will be able to authorize all EIV users. PHA eds and authorizing officials and users sign the EIV user access authorization form and rules of behavior agreement. Detailed instructions for completing this this authorization form are available on the PIH EIV website, and that web address is right there. PHA hired management agents may have access to EIV if authorized by the PHA ED or other PHA official. PHAs must contain copies of completed forms. PHA will then submit the completed form to the EIV coordinator in the local HUD field office by fax, email, or mail. The HUD field office approves and grants the PHA staff access to EIV. All EIV users must have a WAS ID with an active PIC and EIV access rights. Guest users in PIC cannot access EIV. And EIV copies PIC data nightly. Once the HUD field office has approved the PHA user administrators within EIV, PHA user admin can create access requests for additional and future PHA staff in EIV by selecting users from its list displayed under user administration by users. Check the applicable checkboxes next to desired roles, assign public housing projects to PHA occupancy, public housing, or by clicking on the pencil, and we'll show you how to do that. Here's a chart depicting EIV user roles and what they can and cannot do as with regards to some of the information and some of the reports that you are going to be that you've been using. So this is a good reference for who can create, who can read, who can update, and who can delete. And if you have any questions about this, our EIV staff is here to answer that. So let's just go through some of the details of these user roles. We have a PHA occupancy public housing. And you have to remember that the public housing project must be assigned to the user, otherwise the user will not be able to access the tenant information. We have PHA occupancy application processor, and then again, this is a limited role and not to be assigned to any user if the PHA occupancy voucher or public housing role has already been assigned to them. You have a PHA security administrator. This person is allowed to monitor staff access to EIV system by using various audit reports, which is the user session and activity report or a tenant data access report. A user can be assigned multiple roles. Occupancy users should only be assigned to staff who need access to income information. Again, that's a need-to-know basis. PHA should have at least one or more assigned security administrators. Again, this is also depending on the PHA size. PHA should have at least one or more assigned user administrators, depending on the PHA size. There are only under special circumstances can the security administrator and the user administrator be the same person. And typically that is for extremely small PHAs where there's only a couple of people. So if you do have the user administration access, you'll be able to access it here on the left navigation screen, and you can see, you can go ahead and click the By User link there. PHA user administrators are authorized to add and remove roles to users within the agency. The HUD user administrator is authorized to add and remove roles for users within their jurisdictions. So here's what the user administration module by users looks like. And you can query by last name or user ID. You can do it exact or begins with if you don't necessarily know the person's full last name, but you know a couple of letters or what it begins with. You must enter a full last name or a user ID for new users, and then you click on Select User to display the names. And here's what that screen looks like, and you can see we have removed what the, you can click and select the action roles there in the, by clicking and selecting the appropriate checkbox. Here's an example of the screen of adding roles to an approved user already. So you can just go ahead and you can see that the status there is approved. You go ahead and click on that action. Note there is we do have a known system issue in which the users get errors when roles are assigned by users. That is currently being worked on right now. The error message that you would get with the system administrator is not a pick user. And the workaround for that is to assign role by roles as a workaround and email the training box if you have any more issues with this. So if you do run into this again, you can either email EIV_help or you can run an email EIV_training. You can click within the checkbox to select a project or click the Select All and Assigned and then click the Assign button. Only the 11-digit project codes can be added. You can click on the checkbox to remove application roles and then click the Update, and that'll go ahead and update that information. Or you can click Revoke All to remove all the roles, and the status will now be completely blank for that user. User certification process. Every April and October, users must be certified to continue accessing EIV. EIV will terminate user access and assign roles if the user is not certified by the deadline. Users who are no longer with the agency or whose duties no longer require access, they should not be certified. If access is terminated due to non-certification, the PHA user administrator will need to be reinstated by the HUD field office and generate an access request for all other users who request access. Here's the user certification schedule and when those things should be done. When certifying a user, click on the drop-down icon to view the options pending certification or certified only. From this drop-down, you would select pending certification status, and then you would click the user button, list user button there. Once you find the user that you're looking to certify, you can click the Certify User button, and that will go ahead and certify that user for use of EIV. Terminating EIV access. EIV user access may be terminated in several ways. You can terminate their WAS access or remove EIV action in WAS. You can terminate their PIC access, revoke EIV user roles assigned to them. Failure to certify the user in EIV will terminate their access, and failure to access HUD secure systems within 90 days will generate a system termination. HUD will also terminate PHA's EIV access if the PHA is non-compliant with security requirements. PHA should terminate staff's EIV access if the employee leaves the agency, if the employee's duties no longer require access to EIV, or the employee violates security requirements. All right, are there any questions about adding or terminating EIV access for users before we move on? All right. let's jump right into using the EIV system. Here you can see this is, most of you are familiar with this screen when you log in. The URL for this is given to you right there, and you go ahead at this point, you type in your WAS ID and your password, and you click enter, and this will bring you into secure systems. You'll have these legal warnings and security warnings that you'll need to accept. And you go ahead and after you've read those warnings, you go ahead and click accept to enter secure systems. Over here, you go ahead and click on EIV to enter into the system. This is the Secure Systems website. You have more legal actions and privacy acts that you need to acknowledge. There are 2 checkboxes that you need to check that you acknowledge these, and then you go ahead and you click continue. And this is what the first screen looks like. Over here, there will be some information posted for users, some initial information. And then to get started, you go ahead, all the EIV functions are located on the left navigation panel. Functions are listed in white text, and you can click on whichever report or desired function you have. It should be listed right there. So let's take a look at viewing EIV data for a household. The ability to view EIV summary, household summary, income details, or income discrepancy information. You can do that all with one click. You click on the Income Report tab to view household income details. You will find available employment and income information is displayed for each household member, detailed error messages, and to why a household member identity verification has failed. Date the household member has died is displayed for any household member whose verification status is deceased. You'll have alert of possible multiple assistance, and you have an alert of a possible debt owed to a PHA or for non-program compliance. The EIV income report is used to identify income, wages, unemployment, Social Security, and SSI benefits only, not that they have not previously reported in their 5/8. You can also identify historical patterns of earnings and received income, identify any new employment, determine a need to pursue a traditional third-party verification, identify reasons for the tenant's failed identity, and identify household members who may be receiving multiple HUD rental assistance, and also prior debts owed to PHAs and or program noncompliance. Tenant information can be accessed. You can access by searching by a single tenant, or you can do it by a batch. EIV contains household income report for each household member reported in PIC. EIV users may only access tenant information within their PHA portfolio and assign programs and projects assigned to them. You would enter in the user's 9-digit Social Security number, and it's not necessary to enter in any other tenant PII or PHA code. Entering in the 9-digit Social Security number is the best way to search for an applicant. PHA code is required when searching by head of household last name, and the search criteria begins with, if you don't have the exact information, and the head of household date of birth. You can click on the clear button to go ahead and erase all your search criteria, and we'll show you that. So here's an example of a PHA, searching for a PHA to find a participant, actually the participant code. To access tenant information by head of household, here are some of the common errors that you may run into. EIV will not allow a user to access information when a search is conducted by a head of household last name and or the date of birth and PHA code is not selected. Search is conducted by a head of household Social Security, not within the PHA's portfolio or assigned programs. A search is conducted by using an invalid Social Security number, or a Social Security, or the head of household Social Security number does not appear within the PIC database. You'll receive an error if you try to search for a tenant by that. Here's where you would search by participant code. And here's an example of an error for a last name that wasn't found within this PHA. If you have a Social Security number that's not within PIC, you'll get this error here. It's saying that the current Form 58 record has not found that Social Security number. And that also includes if you put a null value, if you don't put any values within that Social Security field, that's the error that you're going to get. And here's an example of if you get, if you have a Social Security number 99999 and it's not in PIC, this is the error that you'll see. Here's another example of an error that you may see for if the information is not found within PIC. The last name in this example is Davis with an arbitrary birth date for Jacksonville, Florida. And that person is not found, that information is not in PIC, so this is the error that you will receive. Let's talk a little bit about the contents of the income report and what things you will see there. You'll see head of household summary information, employment information, which includes wages, unemployment benefits, Social Security benefits, dual entitlements, Medicare data, supplemental security benefits, and disability information. Under the head of household summary information, the information is extracted from the PIC 5.8. So you'll find a PHA code, you'll find PHA name, you'll find program type, project name, next date of annual re-exam, submissions date of their Form 5.8, unit addresses, and the most recent action type. Also, you'll find the effective date of the most recent action. You also find, obviously, the head of household name, the Social Security information, and their date of birth. This is all extracted from the Form 5.8. But once again, if this information is not in PIC, you will not find that information. You also find employment and wage information through your W-4. This is supplied by the employer. The section of the household income report will contain all new hire information for each adult household member. It will include their hire date, their hire state, the EIN number of their employer name and address, and the date received by EIV. In the wage information section, you'll find pay period, quarter and year information. You'll find the amount or gross wages. You'll find the EIN number of the employer. You'll also find the employee name and address and the date that information was received by EIV. Here's an example of wage information. In this example, you can see through quarter 1 of 2009, quarter 3 of 2008, quarter 2 of 2008, how much gross income this person earned, and their employer name. In this case, it's the City of New York, the address of that employer, and the date that information was received by EIV. In this section, you'll see unemployment benefits. The section of the household income report contains unemployment benefits information for each adult household member, pay period, quarter and year, the amount of gross benefit, and the date received by EIV. And again, here you go, you see the pay period, the amount, and the dates that it was received. The Social Security benefits section will include a payment status code, date of current entitlement, gross benefit amount, net monthly benefit if payable, the payee's name and address, and the benefit history, the last 8 changes. And here's an example of what that Social Security benefits section will look like. So under the Social Security information, if the Medicare buy-in equals yes, you have insurance that is paid by a third party. These amounts should not be used to calculate allowable medical expense deductions. And you can see that information is highlighted here. Once again, it's not to be used to calculate allowable medical expense deductions. If the Medicare buy-in is no, You can see that the indicator there is under buy-in, both is no, and the difference between the gross and net benefit is a tenant-paid supplemental medical insurance. And you can find that information that's highlighted there. This is an example of a disallowed claim. How do you know a claim has been disallowed? You can go ahead and check the payment status code there that's highlighted, and N equals disallowed. Terminated benefits. How do you know if someone's benefits have been terminated? Well, you have the payment status there, and it'll give you an example or the reason for the terminated benefits. You could find that information here. The dual entitlement section. This dual entitlement section of the household income report should include the claim number, payment status code, date of current entitlement, gross benefit amount, net monthly benefit if payable, payee name and address, and benefit history. And here is an example of a dual entitlement, the dual entitlement section of the income report. Here you can see the adjusted for dual entitlement. This is another person's social security number. This is an example here. The tenant was once eligible for a dual entitlement, but currently no benefits are being paid. Here's another example of benefits not being paid. So they are eligible, but as you can see here, it says that the benefits have not been paid. The gross amount of those benefits are located there, as well as the date. The household income report also contains Medicare data from each household member. That includes payee name and address, the premium amount for hospital and supplemental medical insurance, the buy-in status, as we just saw, if it's yes or no. If yes, the insurance is paid by a third party. Also, the buy-in start date and the buy-in end date. And this is an example of that Medicare section within the income report. The income report also includes supplemental security income benefits. In this section, you'll find the payment status code, alien indicator, current SSI monthly assistance amount, the current state supplement account amount, the payee name and address, and their benefit history, and we'll show you an example of that. And here you can see that they are also receiving SSI benefits under a recurring payment, and the date that it was received by EIV. The household income report also contains a disability section, and here you'll see the disability is set to yes or no, onset date of disability. And this is an example of that section of the report. You can see that their disability is yes and when that disability began. All right. We are just going to take a small break here. We'll do a little bit early, but that's all right. We're going to give you 15 minutes. So it's 10 o'clock now. So why don't we reconvene at 10:15? All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go through some questions real fast that we received in our pre-questionnaire that we sent out earlier. And just a reminder, we do have a microphone sitting right in the middle of the room. And if you have a question at any time, we have all of our EIV staff here, and we have all of our DC folks, field office folks here. So please feel free to jump up or raise your hand and go to the microphone, and you can ask a question, and one of our staff members can go ahead and help you with that. So William, I know we have a couple of questions that we received. You want to start off with one?
All right, one of the questions that you received was, is the EIV documents available in languages other than English?
Okay, well, at this time, unfortunately, no. English is the only language that the EIV documents are available in. However, there are some tools out there within Microsoft Office and some other tools out there that you can use to translate some of these documents. However, I would caution against that because some of these translations can be not right, and we want to make sure that we're not giving out misinformation. So unfortunately, no, these documents are not available in any other languages other than English, but that is something that we will definitely take back to the EIV folks and to the EIV leadership and see if that's something that can be done in the future.
Absolutely. If there's a need at this moment for additional language for any of the EIV slides or training materials, contact the EIV training at HUD.gov, and we'll get that information to you.
All right, William, next question.
Who is my PIC coach, and how do I go about finding out that information?
All right, how many folks in the room know who their PIC coach is? How many? Okay, so there's a lot of people that don't know who their PIC coach is. Do you have any idea where to find that information? No? Okay. All right, so on the EIV external page, which you can get to from HUD.gov, there is a EIV external website. On the right navigation pane, the right side of that page, there are 3 links, and one of those, and it's under point of contact. So one of those links is called IMS PIC Coaches, and you can click on that, and it'll actually take you to another page, which will give you a little bit more information about your PIC coaches, about PIC. And on that page, there is a link for a PDF, and on that PDF, you can go ahead and you can look up who your PIC coach is, and I believe it's by field office, correct? It's called IMS PIC Coaches by Field Office. So once again, you can go on the main HUD website and navigate to EIV. You can search for EIV on that main HUD website, and it'll take you to that page. And then there is a point of contact part on the right side of the page, and you can go ahead and click IMS PIC there. And within that page, you can go ahead and find a PDF that lists out all the PIC coaches for 2019.
Another question is, who is my EIV POC, and how do I find out that information?
All right, very easy. It's the exact same way that you found who your PIC coach is. On the EIV external website, on the right side, they're under point of contacts. You'll see a link that says HUD REACT EIV POCs, and you can go ahead and you can click that and you can get all the information about our wonderful HUD staff. Also, at the end of this presentation, there is a slide that has all of the HUD EIV staff's phone numbers, their names, and their email addresses. So if you ever need to reach out to them, all that information is there for you as well. If you could use the microphone so that we can catch, we can make sure that we record it. Who's the other one?
I just wanted to acknowledge the PHAs that are here so that they can know Linda Scott is there, the PIC coach, the College Park Housing Authority, your DC, I'm sorry. Prince William County is here, and I think DC is here. So Linda Scott, as you all know, is your Annapolis. Okay, so for College Park and Prince William County and Fairfax, Linda Scott is your PIC coach.
You can also reach out to your local field office. They should be able to give you the PIC information and the EIV coordinator's information. So just reach out to your local field office.
All right. We just went through a couple of questions that we got from the pre-questionnaire. Does anybody have any questions for any of our EIV staff here or any of our DC field office folks before we move on to some more about the income report? Once again, if you do, just go ahead and raise your hand. You can go right up to the microphone in the middle, and then we can go ahead and try to answer those questions for you. All right. All right, we're going to continue on with the use of the income report. So here are some requirements for the PHAs. They are required to comply with the HUD requirements in the PHA notice 2018-18. They are to review the income validation tool prior to and during all reexaminations of family income and compensation. They are to review the head of household income report prior and during all reexaminations of family income and composition for all income sources not included in the IVT. And if necessary, the PHAs are to obtain third-party verification from income sources. And they are also there to resolve any income discrepancies. So when you're talking with family members in front of you and you go ahead and you look on the income report and you see that there's other income that was reported by HHS or SSA and they haven't reported that income, this is your opportunity to validate where all that income came from and basically get down to the bottom of why there's a discrepancy between what they reported and between what the government is reporting. PHAs are also required to maintain income reports in the tenant file, and electronic retention of income reports is permissible. Here are the regulations for the tenant's obligation to supply the PHAs and HUD with specific information. Based on Reg 24, the family must supply any information that the PHA or HUD deems necessary to administer the rental assistance program. The family must supply any information requested by the PHA or HUD for use in any regularly scheduled reexamination or interim reexaminations of family income and family composition. So if there's a change in the family composition, if somebody had died or if the breadwinner had passed away or somebody who's providing a lot of income to the family, this is where you would need to get that information from the family to make sure that you reconcile that information. If a tenant is rejected, acceptable reasons for rejection of a tenant provided documents are if the document, if you're going to reject a tenant's document that they're providing, here are the reasons for it. If it's not original or it's inauthentic, if the original document has been altered, mutilated, if there's some type of, if it's not legible, if there's some type of forgery going on or anything like that, then you can go ahead and you can reject the document that the tenant is providing to you. Once again, if it appears to be forged. So this is how we're going to generate the income report. The following user roles have the ability to generate this income report, and that's PHA, occupancy, voucher, and public housing users. If you are assigned one of those two roles, you have the ability to go ahead and generate this income report. And the way you do it is by clicking on the head of household link, single income report by reexamination month. If you want to do it by multiple income reports, link, and that link is located on the left navigation, on the left side of EIV, and we'll show you that in a minute. To search, you need to enter in some information. So you need to enter in either the head of household social security number, which is probably the best and quickest way, I've been told, to find the specific tenant that you're looking for, their full social security number. And typically you would do that when they're standing right in front of you or sitting right in front of you. So, you are gathering the information from the person. So there's no security breach there. They're obviously giving you the authority to look up their information by their social security number. You can search by head of household last name. If you know the whole last name or just a little bit of it, you can search by that as well. The head of household and the head of household date of birth. And then once you enter in all that information, you go ahead and you click Get Information, and it'll bring up that report. The EIV will display the following report tabs. There's 3 report tabs on the EIV income report, which we will show you. It's a summary report tab, a certification tab, and an income report tab. So once again, if you're searching for a head of household and you want to generate that income report, you go ahead, and this is what the left navigation pane looks like, and you go ahead and you click on head of household. Here's where you would put in your search criteria. Again, searching by Social Security number is probably the quickest way to find who you need to find. But once again, you can use a head of household last name, if you don't know the whole thing, a little bit of it, in conjunction with a date of birth, and then also the participant code. Once you click Get Information, you will see you'll see this part of the household income report that gives you the head of household names, and then you can click on the head of household names to drill down farther into the details of that income report. Here's an example of what you might see. You have the 3 tabs there, like we mentioned: a summary report, certification page, income report. As of now, you can still see the income discrepancy report tab. However, know that that will be going away in the future, and the IVT tool will be your main source for income discrepancy information. So we don't suggest that you use the income discrepancy report. You might as well get used to using the IVT. And here you can find the information for that, summary information for that individual and for the members of their household. So you can go ahead and see on the bottom, you have 2 members in this household. One's 64, and she is the head of household, and the other is a 37-year-old adult. And both their identities have been verified, as you can see, by their verification status here. Under that verification status, you may have a pending status. That means that the matching of the tenant personal PII is pending with the Social Security Administration. You will see that it is verified. It has been matched. All that information that they provided has been corroborated by the Social Security Administration, and their available income information is obtained, and it's available in EIV. Failed. If a person's PII information does not match what the information that EIV has from the Social Security Administration, that's where you would get a failed status, and then there wouldn't be any income. You wouldn't see any of their income in EIV. And if a person is deceased. So as we mentioned earlier, we get information from the death master file, and then we will corroborate that information with the information of tenants, and if that person is deceased, as listed in the death master file, you would see that located here. So here's, again, some examples of that where you can find that information verified. You can see right there where the identity verification status is. This is an example of somebody who has a pending status. And you can see here, here's an example of someone where the head of household here has a failed identity status. In this example, this person lived to the ripe old age of 109. Unfortunately, they are now deceased. And when the identity verification status, here's some of the details of a failed error message that you might see on the income report. And you can see there, it's written in red, verification failed, SS and SSI benefits cannot be disclosed due to a discrepancy in the date of birth. So there's a discrepancy with the information that was provided in their Form 58 against what is in the Social Security Administration information that we receive. And therefore, that's where you would get something like this. You would get an error like this. There is a certification page that you can access. It's voluntarily to be used by the PHAs to review and acknowledge any dispute of EIV information. So if there is a dispute in EIV information, then you have this certification page that you would have to go through with your applicant. PHAs may require an adult household member to sign this verification page, the certification page, and that includes a section for the tenant to authorize a redisclosure of their EIV information. And I know it's very small for you to read, but we tried to expand the part of the certification page in which the head of household will have to sign and acknowledge the redisclosure of their EIV information. Sorry. So everybody can hear you.
Kind of hear from some of the housing authorities, like when you talk about the errors, like what do you actually do? How do you all go about correcting those errors? Because I know it's different. I know some housing authority, they don't really correct them until maybe during the interim exams and so forth. Like, I guess with the social security, yes, it could be any error. Like, how do you go through and correct the error? Do you try to correct it right away, or discrepancy? Yeah, social security. You can use this one.
Yeah, use it.
So an example of a social security error, once we receive the error, we have to go back and check the file and verify the social security number. So a lot of times the social security number is not correct inside of whatever system that we use. So in order to, we basically have to delete the whole recertification, void it out, put the correct social security number in there, resubmit it, and then resubmit it back to BIC. Excuse me? Housing Authority of City of Annapolis.
And usually that takes.
It doesn't take that long. It's probably a 3-step process. But you have
Talk
to
to the
wait. You have to wait till the next day in order to resubmit. So once you void it, it's a process, a time period. So at least 24 to 48 hours before you resubmit it.
Okay.
And then it takes effect immediately.
So does that work like that usually with most of the housing authority? You all try to address them right away? Okay. 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 He said he's very small, so they don't have that many errors. So. Okay, I was just trying to get an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and once again, if there are any questions around how to resolve some of these errors that you may be running into, please feel free to contact our EIV staff. While you have them here, it's a great opportunity for you to pick their brain either during the break or at lunch if you don't want to do it on the microphone. But if you do have questions that you want to answer while I'm going through this, while it comes up, please feel free to step up to that microphone. The EIV staff has a microphone here so they can answer any questions that you may have. This is the perfect opportunity to do that. So I showed you earlier how to search for a tenant by a single tenant. Now we're going to do it by re-examination month. And tenant information can be accessed for multiple tenants of a PHA by using this search criteria. So you can use program type, AII, PH, public housing, or Section 8, the re-examination month, and the PHA code. And this will, the summary reports that you will be retrieving back, they're downloadable and they're printer friendly. You can export them to Excel if you need to. If you want to do your own reporting within your PHAs, you can do that there. And again, you can access the detailed reports by clicking on the summary reports link, and we're going to show you that in just a minute. So here on the left side of that navigation pane, under the income information, where we looked at head of household, now we're going to look at searching by re-examination month. You go ahead and click on that link, and this is where you would enter the information. You would select your program type. Once again, AII, PH, or Section 8. The re-examination month, you would go ahead and select that here. You could also select an action type, and then you select your participant code. And once you click Get Report, EIV will display the report summary. You can click on the income report link. To access any other listed reports from the report summary page, you click on the report summary link, and that'll be at the top of the page. And again, we're going to show you that in just a moment. To access other listed reports from the summary page, You can click the active link to access one of the listed reports when the results are greater than 0. It's either the income, new hires, failed verification, failed EIV pre-screening, or no income. And let me show you this. So this now makes a little bit more sense of where you see the report types that you can click on. In this case, we have highlighted income report. But you see that there's the new hire report, the failed SSA identity report, and all of those are there, and it gives you a look at what's at that specific PHA from a whole PHA view. Once you click on the income summary report page, it'll display, again, the summary reports tab, the detailed reports tab. You could select on the head of household's last name, and that'll allow you to drill farther down into the income report. And you can select the detailed report on that tab to list and see the income details of that particular individual. So here you go. This is an example of the income report. You have there the summary reports there, and the second tab there is the detailed report. You have highlighted here where you can download this report. You can export it to Excel, or you can print out the report itself if you need to show the applicant a printed out copy of this information. This is the summary reports. There you go. This is the detailed report, and it will go down into detail. Each one of the folks listed here, it'll have a whole list. Right underneath there, you see the last person's name there. It'll have a whole list of their information going all the way down, and that's where you will see all the details for this report for each one of those folks that was listed. This is an example of the new hires report. So if you click on the new hires report link, then you will see this summary information, give you all the new hires and all of their information. It'll give you their program type. In this case, it's Section 8 vouchers. And then you can also click on the detail report, and similarly to the previous income report, it'll show you all of the details of all the people listed on this specific report. Failed verification report. If you were to click on the failed verification report, it identifies the program participants with invalid personal identifiers, an incorrect social security number, which I think you mentioned earlier, incorrect maybe date of birth, and or any surnames. It identifies deceased household members as well, and the PHA should use this report as you mentioned, to correct any of these errors with this PII information. This is an example of the failed verification report. Here you see it has the member social security number, their name, their date of birth, and the reason why their verification, their ID verification has failed. It also gives you the date of when that ID failed. And again, you can print this report, and you can or export it to Excel as need be. There's also the failed pre-screening report, and on this report, again, it gives you social security number, name, the date of birth, and the reason for why that EIV pre-screening failed. This is the no income report. Again, these were all listed when you first searched by the reexamination month. It gave you, if you remember, it gave you a list of all the reports, and now we're just drilling down into each one of those reports so you guys have an idea of what that looks like and the information that's there and how that can be helpful to you. So this is obviously the no income report showing which folks have no income. It identifies households in which there is no income reported by HHS and by the Social Security Administration. And it does not necessarily mean that this household has zero income. It just means that nothing was reported to the federal government. So before we move on, are there any questions around any of these reports that we just went through, the information in them and how to resolve maybe any errors that you may have encountered at any of your PHAs?
I just want to make a comment. The income report, I guess this is to the EIV team. The income report does show multiple subsidies. Is that correct? If there is an income report, if there's a tenant that has subsidies that's coming in, the income report should show multiple subsidies on that report. Is that correct? No, maybe not. But the
Rochelle,
EIV.
speak in the microphone.
If there's the subsidy that the tenant is receiving, the income report should show if they're getting multiple subsidies. And I say that because there was a case, there was an article that was published, I want to say maybe a year or so ago, that showed that one of the tenants, I think the person was located in DC, but the person was getting multiple subsidies.
So
They were getting subsidies from the Alexandria Housing Authority and one in the DC. So I was just wondering about that income report, would that show up?
Those are two separate reports.
Okay.
And you're confusing the two. Income will only show income, which means any money that they're working or receiving, any kind of income, wages.
That's on the
Subsidy
income report.
Yes, subsidy report will show if they're receiving multiple subsidies from Baltimore Housing Authority, and
Yeah.
now they went to DC Housing Authority and they're still receiving, or they're in multifamily and they're receiving multifamily benefits. That's what that report is for.
So, but is that also taken out of EIV, the multiple subsidy report?
Hold on, we have another piece of the comment.
That report will notify the PHA. It may have a little asterisk at the bottom, and it will alert them that this tenant may be receiving multiple subsidy.
Okay, and what report is that
The
again?
income report, as you mentioned.
That's what I thought. That's
Yes.
what I thought I heard him say, the income report. And the reason why I say that is very
Yeah,
important.
it wouldn't show what, you just have to go to the multiple subsidy report to see, but it will alert them.
Right, and I just brought that up because it was an article about that where there was a tenant that was receiving multiple subsidies in 2 different locations, and I think it, and I just brought it up because I want the PHAs to be very cognizant of watching that report carefully because of the fact that I think it was part of the OIG reporting and so forth. So just to let you all know to watch that carefully because the person was getting multiple subsidies in 2 different locations, so I just brought that up.
If you don't mind, let me just say, did any of you see the training in 2011? You did? Okay. So you don't want to start talking about Judge Judy, do you? Right? We want you to interact. I want you to speak up and tell us what's going on. We're trying to give you training, but when you see stuff, please, give us some input. Let us know what you're doing. Because I don't want to talk about Judge Judy.
All right, we're going to go over just a couple of questions that we got from the pre-questionnaire. William, want to go with the first one? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment about the multiple subsidy asterisk that's noted on the income report. That's why we encourage the PHA staffs to work in accordance with the HUD notice where they're mandated to use the system. And some of those reports you should be monitoring on a monthly or quarterly basis. There is a multiple subsidy report, so not only will it identify the individuals, the household, it'll give you the address, the head of household, even if it's a child that's being reported in 2 different households, look in the multiple subsidy report. It outlines everything right for you.
All right. Thank you, Victoria. And we will be going over the multiple subsidy report a little bit later in the training. William, do you have a question or 2 that we can answer?
One of the questions was, why does my action that I just entered not show up in the PIC system?
That is a good question. And You want to repeat the question again?
The exact wording was, why does my action that I just entered into the system on the 50058 not show up in the PIC system?
Why does I'm going to repeat it again. Why does why does my action not show up in the PIC system?
Well, some of the things that are updated on the Form HUD 5005A, PHA staff must make sure that it successfully transmits. It has to upload in order for you to be able to see it in the PIC system. Well, if it's not correct, it won't take, so that's why you won't see it, But if you don't see it, then you can go and look in the report, but that's something in PIC. You would be able to go and look to see the reports that you uploaded. Otherwise, it should take maybe about the next day you can look. If you don't see it uploaded, then you've done something incorrectly.
And just to add that, I know that if after that time period, if your action is still not in PIC and you know it's correct or it is correct, you may want to contact your PIC coach. And also if it is, if everything is fine and your PIC coach says everything is fine, it might be an IT issue. And in that case, you want to get in touch with your PIC IT help desk for assistance around that. William, you got something else?
Another question was, how do I get set up to be as a coordinator?
Okay, so how do I get set up to be a coordinator? And to do that, you'd have to contact your local field office, and they will assist you with the training and the proper procedures and any paperwork resulting in your desire to be a coordinator. So the best thing to do is contact your field office. And
You also have to be approved by your ED.
by your ED, right? All right.
And then one last question is, it says, please discuss EIV storage pertaining to electronic storage systems.
All right, please discuss EIV storage pertaining to the electronic storage system. And I believe that can be found in the PHA housing plan. And each PHA has their own kind of guidelines around that. So you'll have to discuss that with your PHA. Is that correct, William?
Yes, sir, from what I've been notified.
William, can you respond to them and ask them, are they talking about within the system itself or if it's a hard copy? Because that question has to be answered two different ways.
When the question came in, it came in written. So that's exactly the way they wrote it up.
So it's an electronic storage system, so I'm understanding.
Yeah, I think it's
that's
electronic or hard copy.
The microphone so we can hear you.
So that's not referring to hard copy storage, it's referring to like scanning it into a system and then destroying the hard copy.
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
So it's not referring to hard copy storage, it's referring to once it's scanned in the system, the hard copy would be destroyed.
I believe so.
So are you referring to if you print it out and then you need to scan it to send it to someone, or?
No, like we scan the whole recertification file into the tenant file and store it that way, and then destroy it, the paper copy.
If they're talking about the retention period, that would be 3 years.
I think you kind of covered it saying that electronic storage was okay, so I think we're good.
Okay, well, what we can do is we'll look into the question, we'll have that PHA resend it, so, oh, okay. Well, maybe I can speak with you during the break.
Okay. All right. If there aren't any more questions from anybody here, we can keep going. We're going to go over the debts owed to PHAs and termination module now. So the debts owed to PHA's determination module is a national repository of families that owe a debt to a PHA nationwide or have left a PIH program under negative circumstances. EIV imports the end of participation information from PIC Daily, and only Forms 5-8 dated within the last 15 months will be imported. PHAs are required to provide HUD with this information. Only PHAs may enter, update, delete former tenant debt and termination information. The record may only be modified 5 times, and HUD does not have the ability to enter and update this information. This needs to be done at the PHAs. The term termination refers to the voluntary or involuntary end of participation in a PIH rental housing assistance program. Termination does not necessarily mean the PHA has physically evicted the family or terminated their participation. PHAs are required to enter the following information into EIV no later than 60 days from the end of participation date. The amount owed, adverse status at the time of end of participation, bankruptcy indicators, repayment agreement indicator, or a default on repayment agreement indicator. Once again, those need to be added no later than 60 days after the end of participation date. PHAs are required to comply with HUD requirements outlined in the EIV training materials and or other HUD guidances and notices. They are required to provide HUD, the HUD form 58675, one time only. They're also required to enter applicable adverse information for all families that end participation in the rental assistance program, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. They're also required to maintain signed or mailed HUD forms 52675 in the applicant's tenant file. They're also required to mail from the last known address of the former tenant from whom the PHA will report an adverse information in EIV when the family has not previously provided the form HUD 52675. They are also to provide family with their debt owed to the PHA. They need to provide that information to the family so that they know what they do owe, and the end of participation report upon request. PHA is also required to honor the tenant disputes of a reported adverse information for a period not to exceed 3 years. So if there's an issue with the tenant information and they want to dispute it with the PHA, they have up to 3 years to do it from the end of participation date. PHAs are also required to notify tenant in writing of a PHA's action regarding the dispute within 30 days of a receipt of a written dispute. The purpose of entering this information is to alert the PHA community of a prior program non-compliance and or outstanding debt at the end of participation. The repository of these adverse information helps the PHAs make informed decisions when processing the applications for assistance. Once again, you want to make sure that this person has not had an adverse action against them or that has caused an end of participation in any of the other public assistance programs. The form HUD 52675 is approved by OMB. Here's information, detailed information about the OMB control number if you want to look that up. PHAs are required to report all outstanding debts, amount owed by an assisted family to a PHA as of the end of participation date, and then also the status, the adverse status of the EOP as of the EOP date. The HUD form 52675, it also contains information collected by HUD from the PHAs who will have access to the information, how the information will be used, how long the debt or adverse information is maintained in EIV. It includes tenants' rights and how to dispute an adverse information. Applicants who are over the age of 18 are required to sign this HUD Form 52675 only once. The form must be maintained in the family file during the duration of tenancy. PHA must mail a copy of the form to the last known address of the former tenant whose adverse EOP status will be reported into EIV. Once again, disputes must be made within 3 years of the EOP date. Otherwise, the information is presumed correct. Are there any questions on the debts owed to PHAs and termination module before we go on? You want to come up to the, just come up to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Coming into my office next week. She's been on the bad debt list for a couple of years. She's about to go buy a house, and this, of course, came up. And she is interested in coming in and making a down payment and doing a repayment agreement, but I have no idea if we can do that once she's on the bad debt list. Yeah, she owes the money, and she doesn't dispute it. Us, yes.
Rochelle, can you answer in the microphone, please? So.
I was just asking if the lady owed the money to your housing authority. Okay, so if that's being the case, then she could repay you off. You put her under a repayment agreement. But
Yeah. Then can I take her off?
no, you
that's
have
the
to
question.
update the status.
That's okay.
You
So she
update
has to
the
pay all of
status.
it. Okay.
But you went on to say that that affects her buying a house.
Yes, it came up on some kind of a credit check or
It was on
something.
her. You put it on her credit report.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's different. Because
Enters into a repayment agreement, as in any debt owed, you can say current. Put it as market as.
I can go into EIV and do that.
Or if you report it to the credit bureau, go to the credit bureau and put it as current.
All right. I just wasn't sure because I was trying to find that online to answer that question because I know she's coming in soon.
okay, well, you can change the status. You just say it's either paid or she's under repayment agreement.
Okay.
Or satisfied. Or
Something-
paid
yeah.
in full.
Okay.
You have choices.
All right, good. Thank you.
All right.
Also,
Questions
that's
are
in
welcome.
accord
All
with
questions
your-
are
I just
welcome.
have a question regarding clarification. So when we have someone who is voluntary withdrawing from the program, I just want clarification that we need to enter that information in this module. It said something about the termination EIP is voluntary and involuntary, so I just want to like clarification that we're supposed to be entering their information. If it's a voluntary withdrawal from the program, we have to enter them into the module. Absolutely. They just say, thank you so much, you've assisted us for 10 years. You know, do we have to put them in this module?
No, the debt owed module is only for a debt owed or
Right.
adverse information at the time a participant
Okay.
leaves the program. Voluntary, if they decide that they've done some type of self-sufficiency and they no longer need program assistance, or if they're terminated from the program.
Okay.
But if they leave and they don't owe
Right.
debt, then you won't even have,
A
you won't have
reason
anything
to,
on it.
I was just confused because one of the slides says, it's voluntary, involuntary, so just wanted clarification.
Well, that just means voluntary. I may leave the program for whatever reason.
But I still
may
owe
have
money.
damaged
Right,
the
right.
unit.
Oh, okay.
I may not even owe money. I may have
Okay.
damaged the unit, and just hypothetically, moving off, got a good job or a job that I don't need the assistance,
Mm-hmm.
but you would still record that I damaged the unit.
I see. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I'm just going to field one of the questions that we, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
And Victoria, I think you might be able to answer this because we talked a bit beforehand about how these PIH and the multifamily being separate and the trainings being separate and the information not always being online. When you have somebody, a tenant who shows up and you give them the information that you have an adverse action with another program, and they seem to be making a good faith effort to reconcile it because it's something they never knew about. That seems to come up pretty regularly, and it's usually multifamily where it's one property, and that management company doesn't even manage that multifamily, and it's impossible to even figure out a name or an address of how, because they're like, if I owed I had one she was 83 years old and she owed $42. But it was somewhere in New York City that was impossible to even figure out who do I call to give you a check for $42. I mean, at that point, do you say, absolutely not, you have a debt in EIV, or the family and the agency made a good effort to try to reconcile it and it just couldn't be reconciled because we can't get in touch with the person who entered the data?
Is this an applicant?
Yes.
Well, we would never encourage you to say absolutely not. You would go in accordance with your administrative plan. Debts owed is just a way to help you make a decision based on previous non-compliance. It's not there for you to rule individuals out of providing them needed assistance. So it's just a tool that you can look in debts owed and say, wow, this individual has been at 4 different PHAs and they have left voluntarily, damaged units, owed money, so have you. And then your PHA, in accordance with your administrative plan, makes the decision. You make the decision on that, but you do have other information you can use to determine if they're suitable for your program assistance.
Okay, thank you.
All right, one of the questions that we did receive in the pre-questionnaire, and please feel free to answer this, was how often should a PHA submit a Form 5A in PIC?
When needed.
When needed.
A Form 5.8 will be submitted at any change, whether it's an interim, a new admission, so that would be done on an as-needed basis.
And this is for major changes to the information in
Any
the Form 5A.
change to the information.
Any change. Okay.
Because the changes to the information are entered into PIC and they are matched in EIV, the output. So any change to the program participant, that has to be reflected in PIC on the Form HUD 50058.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll just go ahead and move on to the access to this debts owed PHA termination module and who will have access to that. The PHA executive director or a designee may identify which public housing or voucher staff will be authorized to see this information and authorized to enter, update, and delete debts owed and termination information. Current EIV users with any occupancy specialist role have the ability to do so. They can search for a former tenant, and they can view the debts owed to PHAs and the termination report of their agency. A PHA user admin must complete the request electronically within EIV. The assignment of the new roles designated to users for HUD approval. EIV users must complete a new EIV access authorization form if they wish to have this access and submit it to the EIV coordinator at their local HUD office for approval and of the requested new role. And here's an example of where the user admin will go in and grant that new user access role to the EIV user for them to be able to see these debts owed and terminations. When the check roll is updated, the status will be listing as pending on this previous screen. The status will change to approve once the local HUD field office approves that status, that change in role. Here are the responsibilities for the program administrator. No later than 60 days from the end of participation date. Are they to delete families from the master list of end of participation who do not owe a debt or an adverse status at the time of their end of participation? And they are also no later than 60 days to enter a debt owed or termination information. They are to ensure that the information entered is complete and accurate. And upon notice and confirmation of erroneous data, they are supposed to confirm and correct or delete that information. So now we're going to take a look at entering and updating debts owed information within this within this module. Once again, PHAs are required to enter adverse information no later than 60 days after the end of participation date. They're supposed to update any errors in that information entered into EIV, and they're supposed to maintain that tenant file documentation for 3 years after the end of participation date. EIV copies pick EOP records and the participation date records daily. Debt owed and termination information is available only if the PHA enters that information. So,
If it's entered in
erroneous.
to the EIV debts owed module erroneously, the PHA should delete it. Other than that, the PHA should not delete anything out of the debts owed module.
So just to recap what Victoria said, she said that if the data is erroneous in EIV, they should delete it completely. They should not update it. Correct. They should delete it. Okay. All right. Debts owed and termination information is available only if the PHA enters the information. Adverse information can be entered by Social Security number or by batch. So we're taking a look at entering and updating former tenant information. If applicable, you can enter the following information if a debt owed is between 1 cent and $500,000 as of the EOP date. You must select at least one failure to pay EOP status. If applicable, a bankruptcy indicator. Check the box if you have received a copy of the court order for Chapter 11 or Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing. If there's a repayment agreement, default on a repayment agreement indicator, judgment indicator, and the EOP status where you would select the applicable reason for the end of participation. Once again, the PHA should enter that information, make sure that the entered information is accurate. PHAs are only to modify a tenant's information no more than 5 times. If a former tenant is making payments on an outstanding debt, do not modify the debt owed amount. If the system will allow you to add a debt owed amount to the database, the system will not allow you to add a debt owed to the database unless you have selected a failure to pay reason. The system will not allow you to add conflicting information into the database.
Although a PHA may only modify that record 5 times, if there's an instance where it has to be modified a 6th time, we can make sure that they can do that. But we have it set that they can only go in and out of the record 5 times. We ask that they not modify the amount owed because there have been mistakes made.
Mm-hmm.
So we would prefer that they continue with their normal accounting procedures when someone is repaying a debt, and when the debt is paid in full, then you indicate in EIV that the debt is paid in full. But we ask that you don't modify the dollar amount so no mistakes are made.
So once again, if you need to modify more than 5 times, you'll have to contact the EIV staff here at headquarters, and you can assist with that?
Yes.
Correct. Sure. Our question about the end of participation. Yeah. About the end of participation, yes. If there's an EOP record from another PHA for a family who has subsequently been admitted to the program, the household income report will display the warning of an adverse information reported from that other PHA. So available EOP statuses, these are the end of participation statuses that you should enter in. If there's a failure to pay retroactive rent, if there's a failure to pay rent, is if there's a failure to pay their charges or a failure to complete your annual reexamination. Criminal activities such as drug offenses, sexual offenses, or violent offenses are also EOP statuses that you can choose. There are also lease violations. If the family abandons the unit or vacates without notice, if there's failure to report income, if the family is evicted, and also a debt owed that has been paid in full to the PHA. Here's an example of a warning of an adverse information for a current tenant. As you can see there, it says, warning, the debt owed and termination record for this individual, use of the former tenant search feature to view this information. So there is an adverse adverse warning or information for this current tenant, and this is the error message that you may see. So those who have the access to do so, they can enter information and update information by Social Security number. To enter adverse information by Social Security number, you click on the Social Security number link on the EIV left navigation panel under the Enter and Update Information subheader, the debts owed to PHA's termination. You are able to enter the application information. You can go ahead and click Submit, and then that will bring up that information. And you can use the same procedures to update the information, and we're going to show you that in a minute. And once again, remember, not everybody has the rights to update and edit information. You have to request that. So you may not necessarily see this, where you can update information by Social Security number or by batch. But if you do have those rights, this is where you would be able to find that. This is the PHA notice page that you will see. And once again, you would want to search by the applicant's 9-digit Social Security number to get their record, to pull up their record. Here you would enter, once their record comes up, you can enter in the applicable information that you would like to update. And then you can click Submit. You will get this, this warning box or this information pop-up screen that said you have made a request to update the information for this particular individual. Do you wish to continue? This will write the information, and you would go ahead and click OK, and then that information will be written to the database. Then you should get a confirmation screen that looks like this that says, for this particular Social Security number, you have successfully edited or updated their information. To enter and update information by batch, it's the exact same methodology that we use to enter it by Social Security number. You go ahead and you would click on the by batch link on the left side of the navigation pane. And the edit link is displayed for EOP records which have not been accessed previously and adverse information has not been entered. We're going to go ahead and show you that now. So go ahead and click by batch. And once you click that, you get this information. We have multiple individuals, multiple head of households listed. And you can go ahead and you can click the enter information hyperlink there for the specific individual that you want to update their information for. Then it'll take you to this page where you can go ahead and you can click edit. And when you click edit, it will take you back to this page. So it's just another way for you to search for that individual. You can either do it by social security number, you can do it by a whole batch of folks. And once you get to this page, then you can go ahead and update the information similarly to the way you would do it if you were to search by social security number. And then it would ask you if you are sure that you want to update this information for this individual, you go ahead and you click OK. And there you would have a successful notification that the person with this specific social security number, their information has now been updated and it has been updated to the database. An error message that you may see is you must select a failure to pay reason. And you can go ahead and you can see that right there in red. It says you must select failure to pay. The error message is displayed when a user enters a debt owed amount and has not selected in failure to pay EOP status. Another error message you may see is you must enter the debt owed amount. So once again, this is displayed when the user selects a failure to pay reason and does not enter what the debt owed is. Another error message you may see is the end of participation status is required. So this is displayed when the user has not selected an EOP status at all. You may see this error message. Bankruptcy can only be checked when a debt owed is greater than 0. So you cannot owe $0, and that's where you would see this. All right, now we're going to go through just briefly on how to delete a debt owed to a PHA and termination. How to delete an EOP record. So PHAs are required to delete EOP records for which there is no adverse information needed to be reported or reported erroneous adverse information. Do not delete records of families who pay the debt in full. Instead, add the debt paid in full EOP status to the family record so we can keep track of that. Deleted records are permanently deleted, so be very careful if you delete a record. If you have that option, you have that user role, you need to be very, very careful about deleting records. When you click the delete link, you will be prompted twice to confirm that you really, really want to delete this family. EIV will always display a blank debt and adverse record if the EOP family is not deleted or updated with the debt owed or adverse information. PHA should do one of the following with each of the EOP records. Delete the record if there's no debt, once again, or adverse information to report, or enter the debt owed and or adverse information at this time. So to show you again how to delete an EOP record by social security number, and it's very similar to the way that you would update a record by social security number. You click on the social security number link under the enter and update information header. You'd enter in the 9-digit social security number to find that specific individual, and then you would click the get information button. Once you see the information of the individual that you're looking for, there is a delete button that you would click, and then you'll be prompted twice to make sure that you are absolutely certain that you want to delete this record. And once you confirm that deletion, that record is completely deleted. So let's go ahead and show you how that's done. Once again, here's the link under the debts owed to PHAs and terminations. You go search by social security number. Go ahead and you would enter in the 9-digit social security number here, and then you click get information. Again, very similar to the way that we updated information. Here, it shows you the specific record that you're looking at that you search for by that Social Security number, and then you would go ahead and you would click that delete button. It'll ask you twice. You want to make sure you want to do that. Yes, you would click twice, and then once again, remember, once that information is deleted, it's gone. You can also delete EOP records by batch, and again, it's the same way as we showed you how to update the information by batch. You would click on the batch link that's located under the by Social Security number link. You would enter in that information. You go ahead and you would get the information. It would show you your list of folks. You check mark the records that you want to delete, and then you would click delete. It will prompt you. The system will prompt you twice to make sure you want to do that for sure, and then you would click OK. To confirm deletion, when you confirm the deletion of the selected EOP records, EIV will delete that record. You can delete up to 50 records at a time, and you can do that by selecting the All button. And if you can deselect the All button to reverse that action. EIV will highlight the EOP records and display the name of each selected EOP record flagged for deletion below the Delete, Select All, and Deselect All buttons, and we'll show you that in just 1 minute. So here you go. Once again, it's located. The link there is located under by batch. When you select that, you will see this list of household head of household names, and you would select the desired records that you would like to delete. You can do up to 50 at a time. You can click select all, and it will select all 50, and you can go ahead and delete those, or you can deselect that if you do not wish to do that. So for example, in this example, we selected 3 records, and we went ahead and we clicked delete, and it'll give you the confirmation there that 3 families with the last name of X, Y, and Z have been selected for a deletion. And here's another confirmation box that wants to make sure that you are absolutely certain that you want to do it. All right, let's go through the use of this debts owed to PHAs and terminations report. How are you going to use that? This PHA specific report includes PHA statistics at the top, a list of reported tenants on the bottom of this report, and details of debts owed and termination information for the tenant. To drill down into that tenant information, you're going to have to click on the hyperlink of that tenant name, and we'll show you that in a minute. So here's an example of a debts owed to PHAs and terminations report. As you go ahead, you see the debts owed and PHA termination, the PHA level statistics at the top for both the for the whole entire PHA, and then it splits it up by public housing and Section 8 programs. You have the names of the heads of households that do owe these debts, and you can click on the specific household member that you want to drill down into to get that detailed information. This report contains statistics and details of only entered adverse information reported by your agency. The report will be blank if your agency hasn't reported any adverse information into EIV. And PHAs may use this report to monitor PHA reported information. If there is no information found, you'll see a screen like this. It'll say no reported information. All right, are there any questions before we move on? Any questions regarding this, the debts owed to PHA's report, how to read it, how to use it, what the information means from at a PHA level, or how to drill down to find individual member information?
Has anyone had any problems with the debts owed module or any issues? I take that as a no.
All right, so everybody has that. I'm going to pull up a question that we got in our pre-questionnaire. One of them says, how often should we run reports? Income discrepancy, multiple subsidy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you want to, does one of our EIV staff want to enter that? What may be the best practices for running those reports?
We ask our PHAs to review these reports on a monthly basis.
All right. All right, so we're just going to keep going then, if there are not any more questions. Screening of applicants and searching for a former tenant. How do you go ahead and you search for a former tenant? PHAs are required to conduct a former and existing tenant search for all adult applicant household members prior to admission. The purpose of this is to determine suitability for an initial rental assistance, avoid providing limited federal housing to assistance to families who previously did not comply with another HUD program requirement, or they owe money to the PHA as of their end of participation date. PHAs are required to deny admission at their discretion in accordance with the PHA's established policies. At this time, HUD regulations do not require a PHA to deny assistance to family with reported adverse information in EIV. And this is consistent with the Presidential Memorandum of June 18th, 2018. HUD strongly encourages PHAs to adopt policies which will hold families accountable for their actions or inactions, which result in fraud, waste, and abuse, and to prevent improper payments on behalf of potential beneficiaries of HUD rental housing assistance programs. In order to conduct a former tenant search, you need to have one of the following user roles: a PHA occupancy applicant processor or voucher, or public housing. To search for a former tenant, you click on the former tenant link on the left navigation pane under the debts owed to PHAs and terminations header. You enter in that 9-digit social security number that you have, and you go ahead and you click Get Information. The other way you can search for a tenant is by searching obviously by last name only, or last name and date of birth. Searching by date of birth only is not allowed. You won't be able to find the person that you're looking for. But once again, the easiest and quickest way to do this is by using their 9-digit social security number. And again, if you mess up, you can go ahead and click clear, and it'll go ahead and clear out the search screen. We're going to show you that in 1 minute. So here's where you'll find the former tenant search link. You go ahead and you click on that link. Here's where you'll enter the information to search by. Once again, you want to, quickest and easiest way to search by a 9-digit social security number. However, if all you have is a last name and date of birth, you can do that as well. And once again, you cannot search by just the date of birth. And you can actually see right there, we have an error message there that says you can't search by the date of birth only. The system will display either a positive or a negative result. The negative result means that the PHA is not reported an adverse termination and or debt owed. Positive results means that the PHA has reported an adverse termination and or debts owed to the debts owed to the PHA was not deleted, the EOP record, a blank debt or an adverse record. And here is, once you search for a tenant by the social security number and they don't have any termination or any adverse information, this is what you would see. You would see that there is no information for this specific tenant. Negative results for a former tenant, you can see that right there. We've highlighted, it's not very big, but you can see that there was a failure to pay rent and that there's a lease violation, and as of their end of participation status, the debt owed was paid in full. And this is an example of what the bottom of that negative result for that former tenant report would look like. And the information that has there is a member social security number, the last name, and whether or not their identity was their identity verification statuses. Here's an example of a blank debt or adverse record. And here we have highlighted there was no bankruptcy, there's no debt owed to the PHA, there's no repayment agreement, and they have not defaulted on any repayment agreement. You can see that with the statuses of no there. So what's a PHA to do if there's a positive result? You are to provide a family with a copy of the debt owed to PHA and EOP report. For unpaid debts, you're to deny admission in accordance with PHA policy and or require the family to repay the reporting PHA and provide your agency with the receipt of that repayment. You also required to enter in a repayment agreement and provide your agency with a copy of that agreement if that is what is chosen.
Payment agreement, I think that's what we're saying, that should be okay for the PHA to deny admission. I think what it's saying is that it says for unpaid debt, deny admission in accordance with PHA policy or require the family, those two items. So if a tenant is under repayment agreement, they should be offered admission. They should not be denied. I think that's what it's saying. I just wanted to clarify.
But that's up to the PHA and their PHA policy. That's in accordance with the PHA policy. They should have a policy on how they handle individuals coming to their PHA who are in a repayment agreement.
Okay. But I think I just wanted to understand clearly. So you're saying it's a possibility even if they have a repayment agreement, they can be denied? Or you're saying it's up to the PHA's policy? PHA policy. PHA policy. Okay, thanks.
Unrelated, the reason why we need everyone to go up to the microphone is not for us in the room, it's for those that might be listening in. They can't hear us when we talk without the microphone. That's the only reason we're asking you to go to the microphone.
All right, thank you, Shay. And again, so what else is a PHA supposed to do? Based on positive search results for adverse terminations, you're supposed to deny admission in accordance with your PHA policy. HUD regulations grant PHA discretionary authority to deny admission based upon these positive results that you may find. All right, at this time, we're coming up on 11:40. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and break a little bit early for lunch. But we ask that you come back around 1 o'clock, and then we can go ahead and continue on from there.